So we shall be first doing the problem B, then C, then D, and then Shubho will explain problem E, and then A. This will be the flow of problems. So in problem A, it says that problem B states that Peter stands in line of n people, but he doesn't know exactly which position he occupies. He can say that there are no less than A people standing in front of him and no more than B people standing in front of him, uh, standing behind him. Find the number of different positions Peter can occupy. So basically, the crux of the problem is that uh, we have been given a line where there are a total of n people, and it says that there are no less than a people standing in front of me. That means at least a people are standing in front of me. So let's say suppose these are the a people and these people are standing in front of me. So these positions are vacant. How many positions are vacant? N minus a. So these positions can be occupied by me. This is the first condition. And the second condition that has been given is that and no more than B people are standing behind him. No more than B people are standing behind him. That means that a maximum of B people can stand behind me. So here are the N people, and say suppose these are the B people, and since a maximum of B people can stand behind me, so I will be standing here, that is the B plus 1th position. When I'm standing at the B plus 1th position, B people are behind me, so I can occupy a maximum of B positions. Now we want to output the number of different positions that I can occupy. Now, the number of different positions that I can occupy will be the intersection of these two conditions. Uh, only only the value which satisfies both these conditions will give us the correct answer. So we will take the minimum of these two answers. We will take sorry, here will it will be b plus 1 because we can occupy b plus 1 different positions. So the answer will be minimum of n minus a and b plus 1. uh, Tell me if you want me to code the solution and submit it. If it's okay, then I can go on to the next problem.
Can you please code?
Okay. So basically, just the problem is very simple. Uh, I will remove this code and start afresh. First, I will give the header files. That is the basics of any C++ program. I will write I will hash include iostream, and then I will write using namespace std. I will declare the main function, and see the input format. The input format states that the only line contains three integers n, a, and b. So, okay, I will input the three integers n, a, and b. I will declare it first, and then I will input all the three numbers. And what do I need to give in the output? I need to print a single number, the number of sort positions. That is the number of different positions. The number of different positions will be minimum of n minus a and b plus 1. So that is the solution. Let me just also run the program. I will copy the input. The 311 gives me 2, 311 gives me 2, so that's correct. Let me check for the other test case. 3. So you see, it gives me the correct answer. I will try submitting my code. Mm, this is problem B. Copy my code and paste it here. Mm, let me reload. Okay, so it's giving me perfect.
Gary, I think there is an issue. You are not properly audible.
Hello.
Yes, yes, it is fine now. Okay, continue.
Okay, so I will move on to the next problem. That is problem C. It states that I'll just explain what the problem is. It states that we are currently at point 0 and we need to reach a given point x. So there is a number line, and on the number line, we are currently at the point 0 and we want to go to the point x. And how are we going to that point? We are going to that point by making several jumps. It may be one jump or two jumps or three jumps, depending upon our solution. So here is the number line. We are currently at this point 0 and we need to reach this point, that is point x. How do we reach this? You can make several jumps. Suppose you are currently at point y and jump for the kth time. You can either jump to the point y plus 1 or jump to the point y minus 1. So let me just give you an example. Say suppose I am at point, say suppose 3, and I am going to have my third jump. So I can either go to the point 3 plus 3, that is 6, or I can go to the point 3 minus 1, that is 2. So if that's understood, we can go on to seeing some test cases. Let us say when x is equals to 4, this is the number line 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So in the first case, say suppose if I go from point 0 to point 1, I make my first jump. In the second jump, I can either move one step backward or two steps forward. So I said, let's go two steps forward. Then in the third step, I can either come one step backward or I can go three steps forward. That is, I go to point 6. So, and then when I am at point 6, I can either go to point 5 or I can go to point 10. So clearly I do not want to go to point 10. So what I will do is that I will come back to point 5. And then from point 5, I will again come back to point 4. So in total, I made 1, 2, 3, 4, then minus 1 and then minus 1. So there were total of 6 jumps. But you see, it is possible to complete this in 3 jumps itself. How? Let me explain it to you. Say suppose in the first jump, instead of going one step forward, I went one step backward. Then in the second jump, I went two steps forward, and then in the third step, I went three steps forward. So this will give me 4. I hope everyone has understood this. If all of you have understood this, then we can go on to the logic of the program.
Yes.
Okay. Uh, so you see, you can choose a different approach for this particular problem. The approach that I used was that we have to achieve this particular target variable. X is our target variable. And how are we going to achieve this target variable? By forming this particular AP 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 dot 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 should be equal to X. Now the catch here is that since in any of the operations we can either move k steps forward or we can move one step backward. So we can uh, actually delete any of the elements from here and can convert it to -1, and there is no limit on how many elements we do this. So for example, if I convert 3 to -1, I am subtracting my sum by by a by a total of 4, because I'm converting 3 to -1. I'm subtracting my total sum by 4. If I if i convert 2 to -1, I must subtract my sum by total of 3. And if I subtract 1, if I convert 1 to -1, I must subtract my sum by 2. So you see the minimum subtraction that we can do, that we have to do, is 2. But what if we have to uh, do a subtraction of 1? Let's say this was the case when x was equal to 4. So when x was equal to 4, we had this series 1 plus 2 plus 3, which was equal to 5. Which was equal to 6. Which was equal to 6. So what we did here was that we just simply converted this 1 to -1, and the total this total sum was subtracted by -2, which gave us 4. So our entire operation was completed in just 3 operations. So you can say that the logic of the program is to just find a particular value of I, where I into I plus 1 by 2, that is the sum, that sum is equal to n. What I do is that initially I just input my target variable. This is my target variable. Initially I just input my target variable, and then I just compute the sum. I into I plus 1 by 2 gives me the sum of first I natural numbers. So I first pre-compute all the sums. This for loop will pre-compute all the sums. And then what I will do is that I will loop through my array. This array contains all the sums. And while looping through the array, if I find that AI is equals to n, then what will I do? Then I will be my answer. This was the test case here. 3. When x is equals to 3, that is when my target variable is 3, 1 plus 2 itself will give me the answer. So this is that particular case. But if my sum is greater than n, which was the case here, my sum was greater than n, what will I do? I will calculate the difference. In this case, the difference was 2. So if the difference is equals to 1, then what will I do? I cannot subtract. So what will I do? I will just increase my I, and that will be my answer. I hope everyone understood this. This was the main logic. And if the difference was less than equal to I will just print I.
Can you please explain once more the else if part
Which part?
from else if?
Okay. So you see that if we have if the sum is equal to the target variable, then I will just print I. This was my first case. But if my sum is increasing the target, then what will I do? I will calculate the difference. So difference will be sum minus target. Now, if this difference is equals to 1, what will I do? See, if my difference is equals to 1, then then in the next step, in the next jump, I must come back. See here. If the
Okay, now I got it.
okay. And if my difference was greater than 1, I can just simply I can just simply convert any one of the elements from the series, and that would give me the answer. So if my difference is equals to 1, I need to jump once more, otherwise I will be my answer. I hope problem C was understood by all. Do you have any doubts in the code, or do you want to explain it once more? Do you want me to explain the code once more, or is that okay?
If anyone is having any doubt, you can just simply unmute yourself and ask the doubt, okay? Or even write in the chat box. You can continue, Girish. I think there is no more doubt, okay?
Okay. I shall move on with problem D. Okay. So in problem D, it says that you will be given two integers A and B, and you have to perform some operations on it in order to convert it to 0, 0. Let me explain it once more. So you are given two integers A and B, and you have to convert these two into 0, 0. And this should happen simultaneously. And that means both of them should convert to 0 at once, together, I mean. And how are you going to convert A comma B to 0, 0? You have to choose a particular integer x, and then what you will do is that you will either convert A comma B to A minus x comma B minus 2x, or what can you do is that you can do A minus 2x comma B minus x, and at every operation you can change the value of x. It is not necessary. See, it says that it is not necessary that we use the same value of x in all our operations. So we can use different values of x. I hope the question is clear till now. Now you see that here, if we choose x equal to 1, or we choose x equal to 2 or 3 or 4, all these numbers 2, 3, 4 are just the combination of the cases where x is equals to 1. I repeat, all the cases where x is equals to 2 or x is equals to 3 or x is equals to 4 are just the combinations of the cases where x is equals to 1. That means if I use x equal to 1 in all my operations, I will be able to simulate this x equal to 2, x equal to 3 and x equal to 4 operations. So my problem reduces to the question that I have to convert a comma b to 0 comma 0 by either doing one of these. I can either do a minus 1 comma b minus 2, or I can do a minus 2 and b minus 1. I hope this is clear to everyone. If you have any doubts, you can just unmute yourself.
No, I didn't get that logic. Please repeat.
Okay. So let me start with a test case. Only then can you understand. So suppose I have 6 comma 9. Okay. So here it says that in the explanation it is given that we first subtract 6 by minus 4 and 9 by minus 8. That is correct because we can do that. That is given in the question. Just a second. We can subtract 6 by minus 4 and we subtract 9 by minus 8. That is, my x here is equals to 2. What I am saying is that all the cases of x equal to 2 or x equal to 3 are just the combinations of the base case x is equals to 1. This is my base case. Why I am saying this is my base case? Because with x equal to 1, I can simulate this particular result. How will I simulate? I will say that being x equal to 1, I will do one operation of minus 1, minus 2. Then I will do another minus 1, minus 2, minus 1, minus 2, minus 1, minus 2. So this operation is same as this operation. Understood? So
Yes.
I say if I use x equals to 2 or I use x equal to 1, that doesn't matter, because with both I can achieve the same result. So why not use x equal to 1? That will simplify our problem, because it doesn't ask what is the number of steps I require, what is the number of operations I require. It doesn't ask me for that number. It is just asking me whether I can convert a comma b to 0 comma 0. It is asking me yes or no. It is not asking me the number of steps. Okay, so I can just take x equal to 1 as my base case, and so a comma b can either be converted to a minus 1, b minus 2, or a minus 2 comma b minus 1. I hope this is clear.
Yes.
Okay. Now, the first thing that I want you to observe is that at every step, a total of 3 is getting subtracted from a plus b. At every step, 3 is getting subtracted from a plus b. At every step, my 3 is getting subtracted from a plus b. So naturally, if I want to convert a comma b to 0 comma 0, it is understood that a plus b must be divisible by 3. Otherwise, we won't be able to convert a comma b to 0 comma 0.
Correct.
But here comes the second case. If A is equals to 1 and if B is equals to 8, what will you do now? If A is equals to 1 and B is equals to 8, then A plus B is equals to 9 and 9 is divisible by 3. So satisfies the first condition. So what is the second condition that we must apply to make sure that we get the correct answer? The problem that we are facing here is that A is too low. A is too low. Even though the sum is divisible by 3, the individual values are very low. This particular one is very low. And how are we saying it is low? Because 1 is not being able to survive the total number of operations. Even before the total number of operations have been completed, one loses its value and goes to the negative side. But we don't want that. We want both our values to achieve 0 simultaneously. So what I want is that I want both my A and B should be sufficiently large to survive the total number of steps or the total number of operations. Now, what is the total number of operations? Total number of operations will be equal to A plus B by 3. This will be my total number of operations. Have all of you understood why total amount of operations is A plus B by 3? If you have understood, then
Yes, yes.
okay, so can you tell me what will be my second condition? I want both my A and B to be
To
larger.
be greater than A plus B by 3.
Yes. Okay, I think that we can move on to the code now. So first, it says that the first line contains an integer t that is a number of test cases. So in my main function, I have taken in input t. I have taken in input t, and I have run this loop t times. Inside my loop, I have the solve function, which is the main logic of my code. So at first I take in input A and B, and then I check if the sum is divisible by 3 or not. If my sum is divisible by 3, then I move on to my next condition. This is my second condition, and this is my first condition. I move on to my second condition, which is that both A and B should be greater than equal to A plus B by 3. A should be greater than A plus B by 3, and B should be greater than A plus B by 3. Only then will I output yes. And in all other cases, I will output no. So that is the logic of the program. I hope everyone understood this. Do we have any doubts in this particular question?
No.
Okay. Do you have you followed any other approach? If you have followed any other approach, you can share it for problem B, C, and D. If you have solved the problem and you have used any method which is different than the one which I explained right now, you can share it. Okay, I will give you a moment to absorb all this, and then we will go on to the next questions.
Have you solved the coin question?
Yes, we will be coming to that particular question, problem A, that will be taken by another member of our group, that is Shubho Das. Okay, then we shall be moving on to problem E and A. Shubho, you can take over.
Hello?
Huh?
Can we actually change the base condition to x is equal to 2 or any other?
Yes. What do you mean
Okay.
by changing the condition to 2?
No, I was actually talking about that you have actually considered base condition that x should be equal to 1.
Yes.
But there are also some conditions that x can be 2, 3 or 4.
Yes.
So can we actually proceed with any other values of x other than 1?
No. I will tell you why. See here. Say suppose my question was 1 comma 3. Sorry, 1 comma 2. Then how will you convert it to 0 comma 0? If you this can be only converted if you take x equal to 1. Okay, but if you take x equal to 2, you will your program will say output, your
Yes.
program will output no. Okay.
Yes.
If you x is equals to you want to take x is equals to minimum of both of these. Okay, let me see. Let me try for a test case, and you will know why it's wrong. Problem D, I think. Yes. Okay, take the first test case. It's 6 comma 9. You want to take x is equals to 6. So if you take x is equals to 6, you have to subtract 6 comma 9 with either minus 6 or you have minus 12. So I don't think that you will be able to convert it into 0 comma 0. You want to take difference of them. So x is equals to 9 minus 6. You are saying that we have to take x is equals to 3. If we take x is equals to 3, then we have to subtract it by minus 3 and then minus 6. What do you want to subtract 6 with? Do you want to subtract 6 with 6 or 3? I think you want to go with 3. So 6 comma 9 will become 3, 3 and then 3 comma 3. Then how will you subtract, how will you convert 3 comma 3 to 0 comma 0 using x is equals to 3? Whoever was saying this difference, how are you going to convert 3 comma 3 to 0 comma 3? 0 comma 0, you cannot. You cannot, because you need to consider x is equals to 1. There will be cases where if you you will be missing out on cases if you take x greater than 1. Okay, for in order to convert 3 comma 3 to 0 comma 0, you will do minus 1 minus 2 and then minus 2 minus 1. I hope this problem was clear to everyone.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so Shubho, you can take over.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Hope you're enjoying the session and you enjoyed solving the beginner challenge as well. So, okay, Girish had already explained problem B, C, D. So now I would explain problem A and then problem E. Just a second, let me share my screen. I hope is my screen visible to everyone?
Yes, it is visible.
All right, then let's look at problem A. Problem A says that we have got a bunch of coins from 1 to n, and we want to obtain a value of S using these coins, and the number of coins has to be minimized. So let's quickly have a look at this question. So we have coins in the range 1 to n. These are the range of coins that we have, and our aim is to obtain S using minimum number of coins, right? So one thing that we need to observe is that to minimize the number of coins, we should try to use the largest coin available all the time. We will always try to use this value n all the time. What I mean to say is, suppose n is equal to 10, that means we will have coin in the range, say 1 to 10, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, up till n. And say we have S is equal to 40. So we want to obtain the sum 40 using these coins in minimum number. So the optimal way to do it is using the largest value, 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10, right? So if we use the largest coin every time, then the number of coins would be the smallest. That's the logic. That's the greedy way of thinking the problem. So in general term, that would be like if the total amount is S and the value of the coin is N, then the number of coins required is S divided by N, right? We have S is equal to 40, N is equal to 10. So the number of coins would be 40 by 10 is equal to 4. And there is another case here. This was the case when S was totally divisible by N. See, 40 is divisible by 10. So we would need 40 by 10 is equal to 4 coins. But say suppose S is something like 47, right? So here also we will use a similar logic. Largest coin 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus, now we will have to use like something like 7. So in this case, we will use the largest coin every time that is possible. But after reaching 40, we will use something in the range from 1 to 9, something less than 10, because if we use 10 here, then that would be 50, and we don't want to exceed that value. So here we can say that we need S by N plus 1 coin. Plus 1 is this remainder quantity. I mean, this is S by N, 40 by... one thing to note is that here, when we are doing any programming language, like if you talk about mathematics, then 47 by 10 would be 4.7, right? But the thing is that when we are doing C++ or any other programming language and we do division, then 47 by 10 gives the rounded off value. I mean, you must have studied floor like GIF. We 4.7 and then we seal it, we dropped the decimal place and we obtain 4. So when we do 47 by 10, we would get 4, not 4.7. So that's the logic here. So to obtain, to obtain this result, we would have S by N, and the remaining quantity, for that we will add another coin. So that's the logic. This is S is divisible by 10, and this is S is not divisible by N. Any doubts here?
I think you can continue.
Okay, let me quickly just show you the coding implementation of this. It's very simple code. We had this problem where we have two integers n and s. That is, we have the number of coins and the sum that we want. And I'm taking an answer also to store the value that we want as result. So we are taking input n and s. And after that, we will encounter the two cases. That first case is that s is divisible by n. If that's the case, then the answer is s by n. It's this case. S is divisible by n, then the answer is s by n. Otherwise, if it's not the case, then we will do s by n plus 1. That's it. And then output format, we have to print that number of coins. That would be our answer. Any doubts here?
I have a question actually.
Yes, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, currently this problem we are dealing with some natural number of coins. So what if the coin numbers were inputted by the user and it was just random numbers? Would it be possible to reach the sum then also with the minimized step?
Random number in the sense, like if you choose n equal to, you give an example, say any random number you want to. Like,
No, I am expecting a question like suppose I would take the coin values, the value of coin from the users in an array. Suppose I would take the size first. Suppose it's 3. Then I would also ask the user to put the value of that coin, like 6, 1, or 5, and then I would ask the user that what sum does it want, and I need to find the minimum steps to reach that sum. So
Okay.
would it be possible then also?
No, the approach that I am using, you see, these coins, they are totally like contiguous. We have all the values from 1 to n. I mean,
No,
here
I'm not
it's,
talking about that same with the same procedure, but
but
is there any other procedure we can approach to that type of problem?
yeah, I'm telling you, in your problem, like suppose you have n is equal to 3 and you have these coins you have like taken from the user and you want to obtain, suppose any s is equal to 100, say, and so in that case, how I would approach the problem is, again, first thing is that it's not always possible that we would be able to solve it or not. Because if we try to solve it greedily, then I will, to minimize the coin, I would use a 6 rupee coin all the time. So I would use it like 100 by 6 would give me like 16 into 6 would give me 96. I would use a 6 rupee coin 16 times, and that leaves me with 4. But now I don't have any 4 rupee coin here. Right, so this will not work. So either I can do it 1 plus the remaining 1, but had the 1 also not been there, then it would have been impossible because we have 16 into 6 and remainder is 4, and then we can't do anything. But the second approach is that we will start not with 6 but 5. So we will do 5. We can do it 5 into 20 times. So that way, it's a brute force approach. You would have to like try out with all the coins one by one. Like here in my case, I'm choosing the largest coin every time because I have all these numbers available, and so this greedy approach works. But in your case, it's not always possible that if I choose the largest number all the time, after that the remainder which is left, it will be satisfied by the remaining coins. So if it is satisfied, then well and good, we can do that. But if it is not satisfied, then we have to try out with the other coins. So that way, for your problem, it would be a brute force approach where you will have to try out each and every coin one by one. And maybe I think it can be optimized by DP because there might be some overlapping.
By DP, you mean dynamic programming?
Yeah, because like in these type of optimization problems, like optimization problems, like this is optimization problem because you need to find a minimum. So whenever we need to minimize or maximize a quantity, so that comes in the class of optimization problems. So they can be either solved by greedy. Greedy is like what I did just now, choosing the largest value all the time, something like that, or we have to do brute force. And brute force is sometimes DP based, because if we are doing the same calculation again and again, if there is overlapping present, then that might be optimized using DP. You will learn about it. I mean, are you from first year or second year?
I am from first year.
Okay, then that's like you are just in a very early stage of your CP journey, so don't worry. I mean, for now, your general observation skills and your general logic and observation and with practice, I mean, you can solve the basic problems like we had in this particular contest. But the concept of DP and like graph algorithms and all that, that you will learn in the after like 3 to 4 months after gaining more experience, you will learn it. I mean, this problem that you had mentioned, that we will have any number of coins, that's a totally different problem altogether. So this won't be this can't be solved using this approach that I mentioned here. This is
Okay,
applicable
fine.
for the problem that we had, but your problem is also interesting, but that's a different problem altogether, and that would require a different approach altogether.
Yeah, Girish Bhaiya just replied in the chat box something about a knapsack problem of dynamic programming.
Yes, if you, Shubho, if you would like allow me to add something.
Yeah, sure.
So basically, what you have asked, what problem you have said is basically a standard problem of dynamic programming, where if you even search in Google, it is the minimum coin change problem of dynamic programming, which uses the 0 1 knapsack method. And if you have unlimited number of coins of each value, then that becomes an unbounded knapsack problem.
Okay.
You're just at the first year, so I think you should not worry about these problems. You can solve them after you have covered all your basics.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Yeah, and just one more thing I would like to tell you is when you're solving problems, then don't try to prove the result mathematically, because that at times becomes a bit too complex. You just try to follow your intuition, like what you feel like it, that I like it might occur to you that okay, this should work, this might work. After that, you on your pen and paper, you try out all the test cases, and if your logic works for all the test cases also, then you just go and code it. You're good to go. You are, I mean, it's not, I mean, like this thing, it's not always possible to prove everything mathematically, inductively. So you just follow what your heart says instead of your brain. I mean, that's one thing that I had learned in my initial stage of CP also. So that's also what I wanted to tell you. Okay, problem A is clear to everyone, or any doubts?
Hello?
Yes, hello, I can hear
Hello?
you. Yeah,
Hello, Shubho Bhaiya.
yes, go ahead.
I have a problem. I want to just add something that if I have a question that if in the given problem it is given and another condition is given that we can only use one coin at a time. That is, we
In this
can't actually
problem?
repeat the 10 coins in this problem. In
No, it's
the
not
given
given.
problem,
It is given that it is allowed to have multiple coins with the same value in the set. So we can use the same thing again and again.
no,
That's
I was just
never.
adding, if this condition is imposed, then what should we, how should we actually proceed?
Then that would be a different approach. Then then also we can't use the greedy based solution because that depends on your value of S. So that would also require a brute force approach, because you would first try to use the maximum coin, but after that you have to store the remaining sum. I mean, like here you had just a second. Like you wanted to obtain s is equal to 40 here, so you will first take n, then you will think after taking 10, the remaining sum is required is 30. So then it would, I think, require the concept of binary search. You would then binary search this value 30 in this array of coins, and you can try it out yourself. I mean, it's also an interesting problem, but then I think that in some cases it would not be possible, and you would have to like terminate it with not possible, because every time it's not possible to obtain any coin with these values, right? Because we can, first thing is, if the total value is greater than say 55, so then it's not possible because the total sum itself is 55, and if repetition is not allowed, then that is not possible. And you have to like observe the problem carefully and come up with some cases yourself. So that I'm leaving it to you. You can go ahead, think it out. That's also interesting thing. Nice.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So that's it for problem A. Let's hope all is good. So let's move on to the last problem, which is one of the trickiest that we had in our problem set, that is Gabriel and Caterpillar. Okay, so I hope you had read the problem during the duration of the problem solving. Okay, but still I'm just going through the basics. So just a second. Okay. So here we had this guy Gabriel who observes a caterpillar which is initially at a height h1, and it wants to finally reach at a height h2. Right, so the distance that it has to cover is h2 minus h1. It's on a tree and it's initially at h1. It wants to reach it at a distance h2. So it has to cover the distance of h2 minus h1. All right, and now the problem says that, just a second. Okay, so according to the problem, the thing is that during the daytime, every day, what happens is from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., that is the 12-hour duration, it rises up by a unit every hour. Right, so if it climbs up by a units every hour, then in 12 hours, it would gain 12 a unit. Okay, and after that, during the night time from 10 p.m. till the next morning, 10 a.m., it would fall by minus b unit every hour. So that means that at the end of 12 hours, it would slip by a total of 12b. So the net displacement is, first it would fall down by minus 12b, and then it would gain 12a unit. So that is 12 times of a minus b. Right. Is this part clear up till here? This is what the problem states actually. I mean, if you've read the problem, then that's what it's mentioned there, that let's see, you can consider that a day starts at 10 a.m. So it's mentioned here that caterpillar goes up by a unit every hour, and then b slips down by b units every night. So this is it. And so now the thing is that in the problem it's given that in the very 0th day, when Gabriel observes it, then he starts observing the caterpillar at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So 2 p.m. in the afternoon lies in this range, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. range. So in that 0th day, from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., sorry, 10 p.m., it would gain 8 A unit. And after that, let's consider that the day remains till 10 p.m. every night. So till the next day 10 p.m., it would gain 12A minus B unit. Then day 2, it will gain 12A minus B unit, right? And so on. This is the movement of the caterpillar. Are we good till here? Any doubts you can ask me? This is the basic idea of the problem. I mean, this what the problem states, that in day 0 it would climb by 8A, and after that every day it would gain 12A minus B unit, then again 12A minus B unit, then again 12A minus B unit. That's it. Any confusion you can ask me, or else I will go ahead with the observation that's required. Okay, so there are no doubts, and I'm continuing. The first thing that we notice that suppose the distance to be covered is less than equal to 8A. Guys, am I audible? Could someone confirm? I mean, I'm not even sure if I'm in a meeting.
Yes, you are
Okay,
audible.
thank you. Okay, so the first thing that we can have is the distance to be covered is less than 8A. If that is the case, then in this period itself, the caterpillar would reach its destination, right? Because in day 0, it can cover a maximum of 8A unit. And if the distance to be covered is less than equal to 8A, then the answer is simple equal to 0. And then we can just terminate. Right? Is this clear?
Yes.
Okay, so if it's not the case, if distance is greater than 8A, then what can happen? Now, another thing you can observe is after the first from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. it goes up by 8A unit. After that, night occurs and then morning occurs. So during the night time, it will first slip by 12B unit, and after that it will gain 12A unit. So if it so happens that B is greater than A, then actually we can, then if that's the case, then we can write it as minus 12 of B minus A. That means that the net displacement would be downwards. It would keep falling down instead of rising up. So if that is the case, then the caterpillar would never be able to reach its destination, because you see, every day it keeps falling down. It will never be able to go up. So then it's impossible. So if B is greater than equal to A, then answer is minus 1. Let's see. Yeah, if the caterpillar can't get the apple, then you have to print minus 1. So yeah, minus 1. And if both these cases are not there, if this is also false and this is also false, then let's look at a general case. The general case is that the total distance is, we have already stored here. So in the 0th day, the total distance, we subtract 8A because we have covered 8A unit in the 0th day itself, 8A unit, and the remaining distance is distance minus 8A unit. Now, this is simply unitary method problem that if in one day 12A minus B unit, then in how many days? Where is the question mark? Oh, my keyboard is all messed up, like working in a laptop and stuff. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Then we have solved these problems in our elementary school days, unitary method. So question mark is what? 12a minus b by distance. I mean, distance by 12a minus b. 12 times of a minus b. Right. So this is the answer. Is it clear why it is distance by 12a minus b? Because one day
Yes,
12a minus
yes.
b unit, 2 day 24 times a minus b unit, 3 day 36a minus b, and so on and so on and so forth. So, and how many days distance by a minus b? That is distance upon, that's a, like, you can, this is time. So time is distance upon speed. So that's very simple. This is all you need. Very quickly, I'm just showing the code implementation to you. I mean, it would be very easy. Just give me a second. Yeah. So is my screen visible, or should I make the font a bit larger? I mean, is it good? Can you see it?
Yes, it's good.
All right. Then let's have a look at a question. We have H1, H2, A, B. So this is the initial height, this is the final height, and it rises by A unit, falls by B unit, the distance, and we will have the final answer. Then it tells us to input the two heights. I mean, sorry, this should come first according to the input format. And then what I do is I will store H2 minus H1. And then we will first handle the first special case that we had here, that if distance is less than equal to 8a, then the answer is 0. So if this is the first special case, if distance is less than equal to 8 times of a, then the caterpillar will reach its destination in the 0th day itself. I'm terminating the program from here. If I hit this, then straight away I print the answer and then I exit. Okay, now we have, then what I do is the 0th day is over. So the remaining distance is 8 into a. I'm like subtracting this distance covered in the 0th day. So we are left with the remaining distance. And now we will check for the impossible condition that if it slips more than it rises, then it's impossible to reach its destination. So we will have impossible and then terminate. And if both these cases don't occur, then that's the general case that if then we will have the answer as distance by speed, distance by 12 into a minus b. Actually, I'm coding it a bit like this code only, because here also it's a similar type of thing that if it is divisible, then s by n, and if it is not divisible, then you can use an inbuilt ceil function also. So something like this also works. So here also I'm going to do a similar thing, that if distance is divisible by 12 times of a minus b, then answer is distance by 12a minus b. Else answer is distance by 12a minus b plus 1. And then I simply output the answer. That's it. Let me try compiling it. Okay, the build is successful. Do you have any doubts here so far? The code is complete. This is the first case that I handled. This is the second case that I handled. And this is a general case that I handled. Distance by 12a minus b. And if you want to ask why 12a minus b, because if it is 37, then like 37 here, say, then it will be again 12 plus 12 plus 12 plus something extra. So to deal with something extra part, like we did in problem A code also, here also it's the same logic. Or you can use the inbuilt ceil function also. That will also do the thing for you. So are we good here? I mean, any doubts? Hello?
Yes, Shubho.
Okay, I'm just quickly trying to submit the code to just gain the satisfaction that, okay, I've solved something. The problem code is 652A, and let's hope that everything goes fine. Just a second. I think I made one bracketing error here. So this should be actually distance by 12. Yeah, you see what happened here. I forgot to put a bracket here. So the division takes a priority over the multiplication. Yeah, so this is where I messed up. You note here, because I didn't put a bracket here, so the division took place first and the multiplication took place after that. So that is why I got an error. That's my irresponsibility here. So now hopefully it should work. Let's hope so. All right, we got this all clear status. So that's good. So, all right, then that's it. I hope everything is clear. Any doubts in problem A and E? This was the problem E observations that I needed to solve. And problem A is very simple. I mean, you just need the greedy approach to solve it. So, any doubts? Or does anyone want to share his approach, his or her approach, how you approached it differently? Then also feel free to speak up. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. I don't think students have any more doubt now.
Okay, then. All right, then. Nice interacting with all of you. Hope you all enjoyed the session. And
Yes, Shubho, it was really amazing. And also Girish as well. You explained it really well. And now I would like to add something that in the chat box, I have shared a feedback form. It will be very nice from all of you if you just fill it. It will take a minute about this session. Moreover, we will be mailing you the Discord link. We have our official communication channel now, and we will be sharing the invitation link to the Discord channel. So you guys can join there, okay? Okay,
Thank you
thank
very
you.
much for such a wonderful session.
Okay. Thank you so much.